You see, there comes a moment, subtle, quiet, almost imperceptible, when the snake slips away, not with a fight, but with a stillness. And you wonder, was it really gone, or did it just change form? The name still echoes, doesn't it? That betrayal, that scar, that memory. It clings not to your skin, but to your soul. And you, dear one, you who have been chosen, feel the sting of a curse that once tried to own you. But listen closely. The pain you carry is not proof that the curse remains. It is the smoke that lingers after the fire has been put out. The snake, the lie, the poison. It has been removed, not by your hand, but by the quiet intervention of the divine. You see, God doesn't always roar. Sometimes he just takes away what was never meant to stay. And now here you are, still remembering, still hurting, but no longer bound. The curse is broken. You are still standing. And that changes everything. The snake has always been more than just a creature of betrayal. It is a symbol of transformation, of hidden knowledge, and of the necessary friction that reveals the path of the chosen. It is not an enemy in the obvious sense. No, the snake comes into your life with charm, with seduction, with comfort disguised as connection. It coils around your trust, whispers in your ear, and makes you feel seen in a way that is both familiar and fatal. And yet, it's not until the bite, until the venom begins to course through your spirit, that you truly understand who you are in relation to it. You were not just bitten. You were aware. The snake shows up not to end you, but to expose what you refuse to see. It slithers into sacred places, your heart, your dreams, your prayers, and it does not simply destroy, it reveals. And isn't that the most dangerous kind of enemy? The one who teaches you something about yourself? The one who exposes your longing to be loved, your fear of being alone, your willingness to compromise just to feel seen? The chosen are not chosen because they are immune to pain. They are chosen because they are called to see pain for what it truly is. A teacher, a mirror, a messenger. You see, the snake doesn't enter without permission. Somewhere, even if unconsciously, we allow it. We open the door with loneliness, with wounds that never healed, with a need to fill the silence that only God was meant to occupy. And so the snake comes, not always hissing, but sometimes smiling, and it makes itself at home. It brings gifts that look like love, but feel like chains. It tells you stories that sound like destiny, but are rooted in deception. By the time you recognize the fangs, you're already bleeding. But even this is grace. Because the snake, in all its darkness, has a divine purpose. It cannot destroy what God has anointed, but it can challenge it. And that challenge is holy. It forces you to decide who you truly are. Will you allow the bite to define you, or will you rise through it? Will you carry the poison, or will you let it become your purification? The chosen do not emerge without scars. The scar is the evidence of what was survived, what was removed, what was never meant to stay. And that removal is never random. When God takes something or someone out of your life, it is never because he wants to leave you empty. It is because he wants to make space for what is truly sacred. But first, he lets the snake reveal its nature. He lets you taste the bitterness of betrayal so that you will no longer settle for sweet lies. He lets the name sting, the memory ache, the illusion collapse. Because without that collapse, you would keep rebuilding on broken ground. What makes this even more mysterious is that the snake often comes with a name you once cherished, a friend, a lover, a mentor, a family member, someone who knew your weaknesses and used them as openings. And that's why it hurts so deeply, not because they were powerful, but because you gave them power, not because they were truth, but because you believed they were sent. But now, you see, they weren't sent by God. They were allowed by God to serve a purpose. To remove the snake is not just an act of deliverance. It's an act of realignment. It reminds you that what feels good isn't always godly, that what affirms your ego may starve your soul, that the people who clap for you in daylight may curse your calling in the dark. But don't resent the snake for being what it is. Thank it for revealing who you are not. You are not meant to stay poisoned. You are not meant to remain entangled. You are not meant to walk with those who only love you when you're small and silent. And so God, in His infinite wisdom, removes the snake, sometimes violently, sometimes gently, but always completely. He tears apart the illusion with such precision that you have no choice but to face the truth. And in that truth you see yourself again, not as a victim, but as a vessel, not as someone broken, but as someone being made whole through the breaking. The snake was never your ending. It was your unveiling. The chosen often carry the burden of being misunderstood. People don't always see the battles you fight in silence. They don't see the snakes you've had to walk away from. They don't see the nights you spent crying out for clarity, only to be given silence in return. But silence is not absence. It's preparation. It's the space where God readies your soul for the next level of anointing. And that next level can only come after the snake is gone. And here you are now, still standing. Yes, the name still hurts. Yes, the betrayal still echoes. But the curse is broken. The cycle has been interrupted. The venom has lost its power. You didn't just survive. You were sanctified in the process. You see more clearly now. You trust more carefully. You walk more boldly. Because now you know what a snake looks like. And more importantly, you know who you are when one tries to bite you. You are the one who rises, the one who sees through the charm, the one who walks away from the coil, no matter how warm it felt. The one who has been chosen, not for comfort, but for clarity, not for ease, but for elevation. The snake was part of your story, but it is not your identity. The identity is this: you are healed. You are whole. You are walking proof that what tried to curse you only confirmed your calling, and nothing, not even the memory of the bite, can undo what God has declared over your life. The strange thing about pain is that it lingers not only in the body, but in the mind, in the soul. The name, the voice, the memory of the one who hurt you sometimes feels more venomous than the betrayal itself. You may forget the specific moment the snake bit you, but the name, oh, the name still rings like a bell in a quiet room. And that is where many people get confused. They assume because it still hurts, it must still have power. But in reality, the hurt you feel is not a curse. It's a scar. And a scar, unlike a wound, is no longer bleeding. It's closed. It's healed, but it remembers. And in that memory is wisdom. You see, names are not just sounds. They are symbols. They carry energy. They hold meaning far deeper than syllables. When you speak the name of someone who hurt you, it summons more than just the thought of them. It calls back emotions, moments, energies that once had influence over your peace. And so, yes, the name still hurts. It hurts because it once mattered. It hurts because it was once welcomed. It hurts because you built trust around it and that trust was shattered. But understand this, pain is not always an indication of possession. Sometimes pain is the sound of something that no longer owns you, trying to find a way back in. We often think that healing means forgetting, that to be free is to be numb. But that's not true. Real healing is the ability to remember without relapsing. It is being able to hear the name, see the face, pass by the place, and not be pulled under. Not because it didn't matter, but because you've grown beyond the season it belonged to. You have outgrown the energy that once wrapped itself around your identity. You are not who you were when the wound was inflicted. And so even though the name still stings, you now understand it has no more authority over you. It is merely an echo. And echoes, by their nature, fade. It is here that many people begin to confuse spiritual pain with spiritual bondage, but those are not the same. Bondage is when the past still controls your choices. Pain is when the past reminds you of your lessons. You can cry about it and still be free. You can grieve it and still be whole. Because freedom isn't always loud and victorious. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it walks with a limp. Sometimes it still flinches when reminded, but it keeps walking anyway. The name still hurts, because it carried weight. You spoke it in prayers, you tied it to hope. You attached it to your vision of what was supposed to be. So when God removed the person, the memory didn't go with them, and that is part of the process. Deliverance is often instant, but healing takes time, because while God removes the snake, he also allows you to walk out the memory, to confront the ghost of what once was, and to reclaim your power step by step. This is not punishment, it is purification. There is a divine reason why the name still stings, because if it didn't, you might return. If it didn't ache, you might reach back. If it didn't hurt, you might assume you imagined the whole thing. The pain keeps you honest. The pain keeps you awake. The pain keeps you aware of the boundaries you once didn't enforce. And through that awareness, you mature. You no longer need to be rescued from the same trap twice. But don't let the sting fool you. Just because something still hurts doesn't mean it's still harmful. There is such a thing as sacred pain, the kind that reminds you that you survived, the kind that humbles you, teaches you compassion, deepens your faith, and strengthens your discernment. You've been marked not by what tried to destroy you, but by what it revealed. The name didn't break you. It built something new in you, a stronger voice, a clearer vision, a deeper hunger for truth. And so you must learn to carry the name like a stone in your pocket, not to weigh you down, but to remind you of where you've come from, the journey, the cost, the grace that met you in the middle of confusion. Because every chosen one has a name that once brought them to tears, a name that tried to define them by failure, a name that once felt like a curse. But the curse is broken, and now the name, nothing more. It may shake you, but it can't shatter you. The enemy would love for you to believe that the pain means you are still in bondage, but you're not. You're just remembering. You're just healing. You're just learning how to feel again without losing yourself in the feeling. And that is a powerful place to be. To acknowledge the pain without being ruled by it, to admit the hurt without allowing it to shape your identity, because you are not the victim of the name. You are the testimony that rose above it. Every scar tells a story, and the sting you feel is simply the story reminding you you've come too far to go back. So when the name comes up, when the memory revisits, don't resist it. Recognize it, bless it, release it, Speak its name without trembling. Say it aloud if you must, not as an invitation, but as a declaration. You are not my curse. You were my awakening. Because what once was used against you has become a sign of your growth. What was meant to haunt you has become your holy ground. And though the name still hurts, the power it once held has been broken. You are no longer bound by what they did or who they were. You are free, still healing perhaps, but free. So hold your head high, chosen one. Let the name come. Let it echo. Let it fade. Let it pass through your mind like wind through trees, felt but not feared. For the snake is gone. The curse is broken. And you, even with your pain, are walking proof that what was meant to kill you became the soil for your rebirth. To be chosen is not a gentle thing. It is not soft. It is not always light. It is weight. It is fire. It is pressure wrapped in purpose. And because of that, the chosen must be bitten. Not because they are weak, but because they are strong enough to endure what others would collapse under. The bite, the betrayal, the heartbreak. It is not the end of you. It is the beginning of your unveiling. The bite reveals who you really are, not to others, but to yourself. Because it is easy to talk about faith when everything feels blessed. It is easy to declare that you are chosen when everyone celebrates you. But when the snake bites, when the pain becomes personal, when the loss becomes sacred, that's when the truth of your calling is revealed. People often wonder why those with great callings go through deep sufferings. But what they don't realize is that elevation demands excavation. If God is going to lift you, he must first dig deep inside of you. He must pull out every false thing, every illusion, every attachment that cannot survive the next level. And so the bite comes. It does not come to destroy, but to dig, to pierce the shallow soil and plant roots in places you never wanted exposed. This is the paradox of divine pain. It looks like punishment, but it is actually promotion. The chosen are not exempt from the snake. In fact, the snake is drawn to the chosen. It senses destiny. It smells favor. And so it comes close, pretending to care, pretending to support, only to sink its teeth into the parts of you that are still insecure, still longing, still open. And when it does, it creates a shock, a holy interruption. It forces you to confront the difference between who you thought they were and who they truly are, between what you hoped for and what is real. The bite is a doorway to divine disillusionment. And though it breaks your heart, it frees your soul. Every chosen one must be bitten so that they may bleed their illusions. You cannot carry lies into your purpose. You cannot build your calling on shaky ground. And so the snake is allowed, not to end you, but to expose the cracks. The bite is not about them, it's about you. What did you tolerate that you should have confronted? What did you excuse that you should have named? What red flags did you paint green because you didn't want to be alone? The bite makes you honest, and sometimes honesty comes in the form of agony. There is no shortcut around this process. The valley cannot be skipped. The betrayal cannot be avoided. If you are truly chosen, then you will face the serpent. And when you do, you must choose who you will become. Will you let the bite define you as bitter, or will you let it refine you into better? Will you allow the pain to calcify into walls, or will you let it shape wisdom? Because pain is a crossroads. One road leads to resentment, the other to revelation. The choice is that they make it the knife blade to our choice and make the case for it. What is most powerful about the chosen is that even after the bite they rise, even after the venom they heal. They limp sometimes, they cry, they break open in the night when no one sees, but they rise. Not because they are superhuman, but because they are spiritually grounded. They know that the pain was not random. It was a part of the curriculum, and no one graduates without it. You see, the bite is not a mark of shame, it is a badge of transformation. You wear the scar not as a wound, but as wisdom. You don't hide it, you don't cover it up. You let it speak. You let it remind you that you've been through fire and came out refined, not ruined. The snake came close, but it did not win. The snake whispered lies, but you found truth. The snake broke your heart, but not your spirit. And that is what makes you chosen. Not that you avoided the bite, but that you survived it. And there's something else, something sacred. After the bite, the chosen gain a new sensitivity. You begin to recognize snakes by their silence. You discern betrayal before it speaks. You walk with sharper eyes, not in paranoia, but in purpose. You don't love less, you love smarter. You don't isolate, you insulate. You guard your peace like a treasure, because you now understand how quickly it can be stolen by something that looks safe. That wisdom is part of your anointing. So do not curse the bite, do not resent the snake. They were part of your making. They were the tools God used to carve deeper spaces in you for compassion, for strength, for clarity. You don't become chosen through applause. You become chosen through adversity, through nights where you question everything, through days when your heart breaks and your faith is the only thing holding you up. That is where the chosen are forged, in the fire, not in the spotlight. And now you are here, still standing, still growing, still rising. The bite tried to silence you, but it only amplified your voice. The snake tried to dim your light, but it only revealed your glow. The venom tried to paralyze your purpose, but it only ignited your passion. You were bitten, yes, but you are not broken. You were betrayed, yes, but you are not bitter. You are better, stronger, wiser. And that is the destiny of the chosen. To be bitten and yet blessed, to be wounded and yet walking, to be betrayed and yet burning with new fire. You were marked by the snake, so you could be molded by the Spirit, and no one, not even the one who bit you, can undo what God has ordained for you. The bite was necessary, the venom was temporary, but the awakening is eternal. You are chosen, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can change that now. God does not remove to punish, he removes to protect. This is one of the great spiritual truths that many only come to understand after the wound has healed, after the silence has spoken, after the dust has settled. We often cry out for answers when someone walks away, when a door slams shut, when a relationship dissolves that once felt divinely orchestrated. We plead, we question, we mourn. But what we don't always see in the moment is that God's hand was in the removal. He didn't let it stay because it could not go where you were going. It wasn't rejection. It was redirection. It wasn't abandonment. It was alignment. Sometimes the most powerful move God makes in our lives is subtraction. He doesn't always add by giving us something new. Sometimes he adds by taking something away. And that can feel like loss. It can feel like failure. It can feel like punishment. But in reality, it is divine mercy. because God knows what we cannot see. He knows the intentions behind the smile. He knows the spirit behind the presence. He knows what is being whispered behind our back when we're too busy trusting the face in front of us. And so, with great compassion, He removes what we would have kept. We often pray for elevation. We ask for clarity. We seek divine purpose. But when God answers by removing a person, a habit, a comfort, we resist it. We try to hold on to what is leaving. We question God's goodness because we don't yet understand His strategy. But the truth is this: God's protection sometimes comes wrapped in disappointment. It shows up as heartbreak. It looks like endings. But those endings are not just closing chapters. They're cleansing portals. God is not just changing your story. He is purifying your path. When God removes the snake, it often doesn't look like deliverance at first. It feels like abandonment. It feels like betrayal. But later you come to see that it was divine surgery, a removal of poison before it could infect your future. And the thing about surgery is this: it hurts before it heals. You feel the loss before you feel the freedom. You feel the void before you feel the peace. But healing is happening all the while. You just don't see it yet. Not because it's not real, but because it's working beneath the surface. There are things God must remove, not because they are evil in appearance, but because they are misaligned in spirit. Not every snake hisses. Some whisper in your language. Some walk with you to church. Some speak with tongues that sound like truth but are layered in manipulation. And God, who is not deceived by appearances, removes what you would excuse. He interrupts the connection not to embarrass you, but to protect the seed He planted within you. The chosen cannot be entangled with spirits that suffocate their assignment. So don't misinterpret the removal. Don't confuse it with rejection. What left you was not greater than what is coming to you. The person, the opportunity, the connection, they were a part of the chapter, but not the whole book. And God is not interested in letting your identity be rooted in what was never meant to stay. He's too invested in your calling to let you settle in compromise. He loves you too much to let you remain connected to what is killing your peace. Often, what we think is loss is God's loudest form of love. He removes what will harm us before it harms us. Sometimes He even allows us to feel the sting, to learn, to grow, to see clearly. But then, when the time is right, He steps in and makes the separation. And you may not understand it right away. You may try to reconnect, you may reach back out, you may wrestle with the confusion. But eventually the peace comes, the clarity arrives. And you see, it was God all along. It takes great spiritual maturity to accept divine removal as protection, to stop asking why did they leave and start saying thank you for not letting them stay. It takes humility to trust that God knows who fits your future better than you know who fits your feelings. You wanted them in your destiny. God saw that they would destroy it. So He stepped in, not with thunder, not with lightning, but with quiet, decisive removal. And it's in the quiet that God often works His loudest miracles. You don't need to chase what God cut off. You don't need to resent what walked away. You don't even need to understand it fully. All you need is trust. Trust that if God removed it, it was never holding you, it was holding you back. Trust that the love of God doesn't always feel good, but it is always good. Trust that what He is doing in secret will one day be revealed in power. You will see why the removal was necessary. You will thank Him for not giving you what you cried for, and you will walk lighter because of it. So let this be your truth. God removed the snake, not to hurt you, not to humiliate you, but to heal you. to preserve your purpose, to clear the way for real, lasting, unshakable joy. And though it stung when it happened, and though the name still hurts, the curse is broken. You are not cursed. You are covered. You are not abandoned. You are aligned. And nothing that left your life without God's permission was meant to stay. Breathe, rest, let go. What was taken was not the blessing. The blessing is what's coming now, that the snake is gone. You were never meant to just survive the venom. You were born to break the cycle it came from. You are not just someone who went through pain. You are someone who was chosen to stop the pain from continuing through generations. That's what it means to be a curse breaker. That's what it means to carry the anointing. The snake didn't come after you just because of who you are. It came after you because of what you carry. You carry healing, revelation, light. And light always attracts attack. But what it cannot do is be extinguished. The venom that tried to infect your soul was part of an old story, an old pattern, something that had been moving through your bloodline, your relationships, your thoughts. And maybe for years no one spoke about it. Maybe the trauma was passed down like a silent heirloom. The betrayal, the fear, the abandonment, the control. It kept repeating itself. But then you showed up. And you didn't just feel it, you saw it. You saw the dysfunction for what it was. You saw the lie beneath the tradition. You saw the pain no one wanted to talk about. You felt it, and you refused to carry it forward. That is what makes you different. That is what sets you apart. You didn't keep going just because you were strong. You kept going because something in your spirit said, "This stops with me." And yes, the enemy came harder for you because of that. The snake tried to convince you that you were cursed, that your life would always echo the pain of your past. But it was lying, because the bite didn't kill you. It activated you. It didn't mark your end. It marked your beginning. To be the one who breaks the curse is a sacred assignment. It's not glamorous. It's not always loud. Sometimes it looks like crying yourself to sleep while praying for the strength not to go back to old habits. Sometimes it looks like distancing yourself from people you love because you know their presence poisons your peace. Sometimes it means being misunderstood, even hated, because you refuse to play small anymore, because you refuse to enable the very cycles that God called you to disrupt. There is a cost to breaking curses. It means you must sit with pain others ignored. You must grieve what others pretend doesn't exist. You must confront the inner dialogue that says you're not enough, you're too much, you'll never be free. But the truth is this: you already are free. The curse was broken when you made the decision to stop agreeing with it, when you stopped repeating what hurt you, when you looked at your reflection and said, "I am not what they did to me. I am not their mistakes. I am not their silence." The anointing that rests on the curse breaker is not ordinary. It is raw, it is deep, it's forged in fire. You didn't just wake up with power. You were formed through every storm that tried to bury you. The darkness that nearly drowned you became the soil in which your strength was rooted. And now, even though the name still hurts and the echo of what was still lingers in your mind, you are walking in freedom because you chose to become conscious of what others allowed unconsciously. What once tried to control you no longer has access. The snake has been removed, the stronghold has been shattered. And now you live differently. You think differently. You love differently. Because you don't carry venom in your veins, you carry vision. You know where you're going, and more importantly, you know what can't come with you. You're not bitter. You're awake. You're not angry. You're aware. And awareness is the beginning of transformation. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. They didn't live your battles. They didn't feel the weight of the chains you broke. They didn't bleed from the bite. But you did, and that pain became purpose. That breakdown became breakthrough. And you now carry authority in the places you once cried for deliverance. You walk through the same rooms, but now with power. You speak with clarity. You discern with precision, because the curse has no more claim over you. You are not just someone who was hurt. You are someone who was healed with holy intention. You were lifted, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of others who will see your life and believe that freedom is possible. Your life is proof that bloodlines can be redeemed, that families can change, that patterns can be reversed, that identities can be reclaimed, that light can enter even the darkest stories. God saw what tried to chain you, and he chose you to end it, not in rage, not in revenge, but in revelation. You walk in grace, not guilt. You walk in boldness, not shame. You carry the fire of heaven, not the residue of the past. And every time you choose peace over chaos, forgiveness over bitterness, truth over denial, you are breaking something ancient. You are restoring something holy. You will still hear the name, you will still remember what happened, but the memory will not hold you hostage. The sting may still visit your heart from time to time, but it will not shape your path, because you've outgrown it. You've risen above it. You've been redefined by something greater, by purpose, by calling, by God's hand on your life. You were born to break the curse, and you are doing it, not perfectly, but powerfully. Not without scars, but with strength. And heaven sees you. Heaven celebrates you. You're not just surviving the aftermath of a snake bite. You're writing a new legacy, one where the poison ends and the promise begins. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to speak to you. It's not always an enemy. Often it is a messenger sent by the divine, wrapped in discomfort, wearing the voice of silence, carrying truth too powerful to be heard in comfort. Pain is what gets your attention when peace no longer can. It's what calls you inward, asking you to stop running, stop pretending, stop avoiding the inner work. And the thing about pain is this: it doesn't lie. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't flatter. It tells you exactly where the wound is, exactly where you're still bleeding, exactly what you've tried to bury. We live in a world that tells us to numb it, escape it, cover it up with distraction. But the chosen ones, the ones with purpose carved into their bones, don't get to bypass pain. They walk through it. They sit in it. They learn from it. Because pain, for the chosen, is not just suffering, it's spiritual instruction. It is a signal that something must be faced, something must be healed, something must be released. And often that something is not outside of you, it's within. The snake may have bitten you, but the venom only travels as far as your agreement with the wound allows. You see, the snake's bite is external, but the pain awakens what was already buried inside. That's why it feels so deep. That's why it lingers. Because pain unearths the hidden. It reveals the spaces you never told anyone about, the fears, the beliefs, the childhood echoes, the identity wounds. The bite doesn't just hurt your body. It triggers your soul. But this is not something to be afraid of. This is sacred, because what is revealed can be healed. What is brought to light can be restored. There's a strange beauty in how pain speaks. It shows up in patterns, in restlessness, in the moments you feel most out of place. It's in the tension you feel around certain people. It's in the unease that creeps in when you're about to make the same mistake again. But that's not weakness. It's wisdom knocking. It's your spirit saying, "You've been here before, let's not go back." Pain becomes a compass for those willing to listen, for those brave enough to sit with it without judgment, without trying to escape. And yet sitting with pain takes courage, because it means choosing awareness over avoidance. It means letting yourself feel without letting yourself drown. It means letting God meet you in the rawness instead of trying to pray the feeling away. There are some things God doesn't remove. He redeems them. He doesn't always stop the pain. He gives it purpose. He teaches through it. And if you stay with him through the ache, you'll find clarity on the other side. Pain teaches you who you are. It teaches you what matters. It strips away the false attachments. It humbles you. It teaches you compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. And when the pain is finally processed, when it's not just suppressed or repackaged as bitterness, you walk differently, you speak differently, you discern more clearly, because you're no longer moving through life asleep. You're awake, you're aware, you're aligned. Some of the greatest spiritual awakenings don't come through joy. They come through the kind of pain that breaks your routines and questions everything you thought you knew. The pain of betrayal, the pain of abandonment, the pain of disappointment. These are not punishments. They are portals. They push you closer to God because you start to realize that no human love, no temporary success, no external comfort can substitute for what your soul is truly craving. Alignment, truth, and presence. There is a kind of maturity that only comes after pain has had its way with your illusions, after you've cried the tears no one saw, after you've learned that healing doesn't always come in loud breakthroughs, but in quiet, daily decisions to keep going. That's when you become truly powerful. Not when you avoid pain, but when you allow it to refine you. Not when you numb it, but when you listen to what it's asking you to release. The snake bite was not the full story. It was the beginning of your awakening, and pain was the language your soul used to bring you into alignment with your higher calling. Because if you had stayed comfortable, you wouldn't have grown. If the relationship hadn't broken, you wouldn't have seen your worth. If the betrayal hadn't happened, you wouldn't have learned to trust your discernment. Every ache, every tear, every restless night was a step toward who you were always meant to be. You're not broken because you still feel it. You're human. The sting of the name, the ache of the memory. It's still speaking, not because you're bound, but because you're healing. Healing doesn't silence everything at once. It gradually rewrites your response. Where you once reacted, now you reflect. Where you once ran, now you rest. That is evidence that pain has done its work, not in making you perfect, but in making you present, aware, grounded. So don't silence the pain. Listen to it. Let it show you where God is still working. Let it remind you that you are alive and still being shaped. Let it remind you that growth often comes through discomfort. And, above all, let it remind you that even in the ache, you are not alone. God is with you, not just on the mountaintop, but in the valley, in the shadow, in the sorrow. And from that sacred place, he is building something unshakable in you. The pain was not punishment. It was preparation. And now you carry more than scars. You carry wisdom. You carry fire. You carry a quiet power that cannot be imitated. The snake may have bitten, but pain became the teacher. And from that classroom, you graduated into the version of yourself that cannot be undone. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is remembering without reliving. It's the ability to carry the memory without letting it carry you. Many people think that to be healed means you'll never feel the sting again, that the name will no longer echo, that the tears will stop entirely. But the truth is, healing doesn't erase your past. It simply removes its power to define your future. The chosen ones learn that freedom is not the absence of hurt, it's the presence of strength in the middle of the memory. It's when the pain no longer makes your decisions. It's when the memory no longer controls your mood. It's when what was done to you no longer shapes what you do to yourself. You will still feel it sometimes. You may still hear that name and feel a little sting, a tightness in your chest, a breath you didn't realize you were holding. But you've changed. You no longer bow to that feeling. You acknowledge it, you observe it, and then you release it, because you are no longer trapped in the moment it came from. You've grown through the pain, and now the memory is just that, a memory, not a master. Healing is messy. It's not a straight line, and it's not a checklist you get to complete in 30 days. Some days you feel free, powerful, untouchable. Other days, a song, a scent, a silence will bring it all rushing back. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. It means your heart still remembers how much it once cared. But the difference now is you don't live there anymore. You visit, maybe, you reflect, but you don't unpack and stay, because healing teaches you how to return to the scene without becoming the scene. You are still allowed to cry. You are still allowed to feel. There is nothing weak about remembering what once broke you. What's strong is choosing not to let it define you anymore. That's what healing looks like for the chosen. It's not about forgetting what the snake did. It's about knowing that what the snake did no longer has the power to stop you from walking in your anointing. Yes, the name still hurts, but the grip is gone. The leash is broken. You are free, not because you've erased the memory, but because you've transformed your relationship with it. The snake's presence once dictated your peace. You tiptoed around conversations, avoided certain places, flinched at the mention of the name. But not anymore. Now you carry the authority of someone who has survived the venom. You carry the wisdom of someone who has felt the full weight of heartbreak and still chose love. You carry the beauty of someone who was cut but healed, who was broken but rebuilt, and that rebuilding didn't happen overnight. It happened through every little choice. The choice to keep going, to believe again, to breathe, even when it hurt. You begin to realize that healing is not the ending of pain, but the reclaiming of power. You no longer live according to what was done to you. You live according to who God is making you into. That shift changes everything, because now, even when the hurt tries to revisit, it has no place to stay. You don't feed it anymore. You don't dwell in it. You let it pass through like a cloud across the sky, seen, felt, but not held. A repatterning. There is a quiet confidence that grows in you when you've walked through pain and come out on the other side. You no longer need to explain your healing to others. You no longer need validation for your growth. You know who you are. You know what you overcame, and that inner knowing becomes your shield, your guide, your grounding. People may still misunderstand you. They may wonder why you changed, why you no longer tolerate what you used to accept, but they didn't feel the poison. They didn't carry the weight. They didn't bleed where you bled, so they won't understand the freedom either. But that's okay. Healing isn't always visible. Sometimes the deepest transformation happens in silence, in solitude, in moments where no one is watching. You don't need a crowd to confirm what God already did in you. You walk with it now. You live with it. Every step you take toward peace, every boundary you set, every time you choose joy over bitterness, it's evidence that healing has happened. Not perfectly, not without scars, but truthfully, deeply, and undeniably. So don't be discouraged when the name still hurts. Don't doubt your progress because of one hard day. You are not back at the beginning. You are not who you were. The name may stir something in you, but it no longer changes you. You've broken free. You've walked through fire and came out refined, not ruined. The memory still echoes, but it echoes in a healed heart. A heart that knows the difference between being wounded and being owned by the wound. You are not fragile. You are sacred. You are becoming. And part of that becoming is allowing yourself to be honest about the pain without being consumed by it. The chosen learn that hurt and healing can coexist, that you can be whole and still remember what it felt like to be broken, that you can carry both the past and the promise. The snake may have left a mark, but it did not write the end of your story. You are living proof that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means forgiving. It means releasing. It means rising, even when you're still wiping away tears. It means walking with the memory and still choosing the future. That is real freedom. That is real power. And that is who you are. Still healing, still feeling, but no longer bound. The curse is broken. The pain is passing. And your purpose is rising. There is a certain clarity that only comes after the snake is gone. A silence that feels sacred, a stillness that, for the first time in a long time, doesn't feel like waiting. It feels like peace. When the snake is finally removed, you start to see the difference between what was real and what was merely familiar. You begin to notice how much weight you are carrying. The emotional weight, the spiritual weight. Think about the silent pressure of trying to maintain something that was draining you. It's only after the removal that you realize how much of your identity was tangled up in that presence. And now, with it gone, you are rediscovering yourself. Pure, unfiltered, and whole. God doesn't just remove the snake to protect you. He does it to reintroduce you to who you are without the poison. You begin to feel your spirit breathe again. You notice how your thoughts are lighter, your prayers clearer, your laughter more sincere. You didn't even realize how much of your peace was being negotiated just to keep something close that God never intended to stay. Now that it's gone, there's no more pretend, no more spiritual bargaining. No more hoping that maybe one day they'll change, or maybe the pain will become tolerable. Now it's just you and God. And that is more than enough. There's something deeply holy about this kind of solitude. It's not loneliness. It's alignment. It's where you remember that your value doesn't come from being needed, being praised, or being connected to someone else's approval. It comes from being chosen, from being known by God, from being called for something greater than comfort. This is the moment where your spiritual senses sharpen, where you stop second-guessing your discernment, where you no longer need confirmation from others to walk away from what doesn't sit right in your soul. You begin to reclaim your inner authority. You begin to realize that you don't need chaos to feel alive. You don't need drama to feel significant. You don't need the snake to remind you of your strength. Strength doesn't come from surviving constant spiritual battles. It comes from knowing when to stop fighting for what is not yours to carry. And that's what this chapter is all about. Release. It's about choosing your peace over your pride, your purpose over your past, your alignment with God over attachment to people. When the snake is gone, the voice of God becomes louder, not because he wasn't speaking before, but because now there's less noise in your spirit. You start hearing whispers that had been drowned out by fear and compromise. You begin dreaming again, seeing visions again, feeling hope rise in you again. This is the fruit of obedience. This is what happens when you let go of what you wanted and embrace what God knows you need. And even though it hurt, even though the name still stings when it crosses your mind, you know deep down you're better. Not bitter, just better. Sometimes we confuse healing with hardness. We think to move on means to stop caring. But you can still care and be free. You can still feel and not go back. You can still honor the lessons without reopening the doors. Because when the snake is gone, you don't owe your loyalty to the past. You owe your loyalty to your healing. And that healing leads you forward. It leads you into new spaces, with new standards, with a new sense of who you are. There's a strength that grows in you after the removal, a sacred confidence. You've seen what pretending costs. You've felt the weight of one-sided connections. You've cried over what was already spiritually dead. And now, you're done playing the old game. The mask is off. The veil is lifted. You are walking in truth, and truth, even when it's painful, is always freeing. Because the truth never asks you to shrink. It never asks you to suppress your knowing. It never demands that you carry what makes you sick. God didn't just remove the snake, he freed your vision. He realigned your path. He reminded you of what wholeness feels like. It's quiet, it's still, it's sacred, and it doesn't demand that you prove anything to anyone. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to let it go. You are allowed to bless them in your heart and still never let them back into your space. Because forgiveness doesn't mean access. Healing doesn't mean reunion. And closure doesn't always come with a conversation. It comes with a decision. You've made the decision. You've chosen your peace. You've chosen your future. You've chosen to believe that what God removes, he replaces with better, with deeper, with real. And that trust is the foundation of your next season. You're no longer asking why they left or why it happened. You're asking what's next. You're asking who you are without the noise, without the pressure, without the guilt. And the answer is this: you are becoming wiser, becoming stronger, becoming clearer about what your soul needs to thrive. And don't be surprised if in this quiet space God begins to speak dreams back into you that you thought were dead, ideas, callings, anointings that were buried beneath the weight of that connection. Now that the snake is gone, there is room again, room to grow, room to heal, room to expand. This is not just a recovery, this is a rebirth. And it's not the kind of rebirth that requires you to forget who you were. It's the kind that asks you to remember who you were before the pain, before the poison. The truest version of you, the one who still believes, the one who still hopes, the one who still dares to trust God, even after everything. So breathe deeply in this new space. Don't rush to fill it. Don't rush to fix what isn't broken. Let the stillness shape you. Let the quiet teach you. Let the peace confirm that you made the right decision. The snake is gone. The curse is broken. And now, finally, you are free to live, not in survival, not in fear, but in truth. And that truth will carry you farther than any false comfort ever could. To stand as a chosen one is to embody resilience. A resilience that is forged not in the absence of struggle, but in the midst of it. You carry the scars, yes, but those scars are not signs of defeat. They are symbols of survival, emblems of a spirit that refused to be crushed. The journey from pain to power is not easy. It is winding, unpredictable, sometimes lonely. But it is also sacred, because it means you have been tried and found worthy. The snake may have bitten, the venom may have coursed through your veins, but you did not succumb. Instead, you rose. There is an ancient wisdom that tells us, the deeper the wound, the greater the awakening. When the snake strikes, it awakens something within you that was dormant, something fierce, something relentless, something holy. It is the warrior spirit that refuses to be silenced. The chosen are not those who avoid battle, but those who face it head-on and come out changed, not broken. You are living proof that pain can coexist with purpose, that hurt can walk hand in hand with hope. You are a testimony to the power of God's grace that covers even the darkest moments. That grace is not a soft blanket that erases your history. It is a mighty shield that protects your destiny. It is the strength that whispers in the dead of night, you are not alone, you are more than your pain. It is the light that guides you through the valley, the voice that calls you back to faith when doubt threatens to consume you. The chosen are marked by this grace because they have been through the fire and still choose to believe. Your story is one of transformation. The snake's bite was a turning point, not a tombstone. It was the moment when your old self died so your new self could emerge. You walked through the storm, carrying wounds that seemed too heavy, carrying doubts that threatened your faith. But through it all, you held on to something unshakable, a divine promise, a whisper of hope, a certainty that this pain was not the end. And because you held on, you are standing now as a beacon for others who are still in the struggle. There is power in your scars because they tell a story of endurance. They remind you of nights you thought you wouldn't make it, of mornings you woke up with a prayer on your lips and tears in your eyes. They are proof that you chose to fight when quitting seemed easier. The chosen one is not perfect. They are simply unwilling to be defeated. They are willing to rise again and again, even when the world seems determined to keep them down. You have become a light in the darkness for those who cannot yet see their way. Your journey, with all its pain and triumph, is a roadmap for others who are lost in their own battles. Because when you share your story, you give permission for others to heal. When you show up, still standing, still hopeful, you become a living testament that the curse is broken, that the snake's power is limited, that freedom is possible. Your life is a message of hope, resilience, and victory. And though the name may still sting, though the memory may still flicker in your mind, you no longer carry the burden of it. You carry the blessing of survival. You carry the courage that only comes from having faced the worst and chosen faith anyway. You carry the strength that only comes from walking through fire without letting it consume you. The chosen are not those who never hurt. They are those who never gave up. So stand tall, chosen one. Embrace your scars as part of your story, but don't let them define you. Look forward with hope, knowing that your past does not dictate your future. You are more than the pain you endured. You are the promise fulfilled. You are the living proof that God removes the snake, breaks the curse, and restores the soul. Your journey is a testament that no matter how deep the bite, no matter how long the healing, victory belongs to those who believe. You were chosen for this. You were prepared for this, and you will not be overcome. Keep walking. Keep shining. Keep living the truth that the curse is broken. And your life is a miracle of grace, strength, and unstoppable hope.